In 50 IES of the last century, the two peoples living in different hemispheres of the earth, in the underworld started the same processes that have left their mark to the present time. We are talking about the Russians and Mexicans have historically not come into contact with each other and different mentality and customs. Despite the different causes and conditions, the result has similarities and opposite. In Stalin's Gulag was crystallized layer of thieves in law with its unwritten charter. In the American prison-born Mexican Mafia, known as La EME. Domestic thieves' law or otherwise concepts as folk tales or songs of Russian folklore do not have personal authors. History has left only the names of the most staunch followers of the born criminal ideology, the Bob Cake, Coach F, Joe Diamond, grandmothers, and a Bob Buzolutskov, and still a beautiful legend tells that the origins of the thieves' way of life are former white officers who chose an original way of struggle against Soviet power. The names of the founders of the Mexican La EME, on the contrary, are well known. Luis Flores. In 1957, in prison California town of Tracy was serving a sentence for killing a young offender Luis Flores named Light-Skinned Buffalo. While Mexicans represented the minor largest group of prisoners in all correctional institutions in the country, the majority belonged to white people, and African Americans are constantly warring on grounds of racial hatred. Mexicans, for the people of both sides, did not recognize. Bison realized that within the American prison system, order to survive, we must unite. As a motto, he chose the nationalist idea is "we are all Mexicans." For lack of a better example, he tried to copy the organizational principles of the most powerful in the world, the Italian Mafia. Initially, even the name of the gang was borrowed from the natives of Sicily. The Black Hand, the title of one of the most famous Italian gangs operating in America. The symbol of the palm print was immediately adopted for a distinctive tattoo. The Spanish lad was also known as La Mano Negro. From the first days of the Mexican gang took a hard requirement for all its members. It is only possible to join. Back there was no way. Only dead. The punishment of the apostate's death. The bison attracted only prisoners of the Mexicans who have distinguished themselves in a ferocious cruelty, in the vast majority of murderers. They were needed for implementation in the prison environment animal laws. Russian prisoners, such characters are called crazy, and even clearer thugs. Between Mex styled themselves carnales, which means brothers. As expected in the family, carnales renounced a strict hierarchy within the community, preferring equality and mutual respect, based on the blood. Even the founder of La Mano Negro, Luis Flores, did not enjoy special privileges. Plow. Only with the cruelty of a small group of Latinos quickly forced all other prisoners to take them. Opponents were killed, often in front of everyone. The reason could be a careless word, a sideways glance, or any household stuff. In 1961 the new trends reached the prison San Quintin, where traditionally contained the most dangerous criminals. At that time, the number of Mexican prison community was barely 50 people. Latino in San Quintin took an important step to national identity. They refused any analogy with the Italian Mafia and renamed the gang. For the symbol they chose the letter M, meaning Homeland Mexico. In Spanish, the new name was pronounced La EME, and they carried the Spanish-Mexican spirit of the gang. The new symbol is the abbreviation of X3. This is the sequence number of the letter M in the Latin alphabet, the number 13. Soon, when La EME will attempt to spread its influence, but the prison in California City, the walls of many houses will be painted similar signs. Joe Morgan. A turning point in the history of La EME was 1968, when it was joined tried Sadidvoletny offender Joe Morgan, nicknamed Wooden Leg. He had a prosthesis. Although he was a half-breed, the Mexicans willingly accepted his new gang member. With 17 years he was in San Quintin for murder. The wooden legs were Yugoslav roots. It helped him find common ground with other influential group Aryan Brotherhood, consisting entirely of whites. Two gangs signed a non-aggression pact, which is valid for half a century. Moreover, the turmoil, the Aryans and Mexicans consistently stood up for each other. Another venture of Morgan, an even more successful decade, was the reorientation of Mexican criminals with theft and robberies to drug trafficking. Wooden Leg was a good businessman and organizer. The main assistant in it was of a young Mexican, Ramon Mundo Mendoza, came to San Quintin for murder in 1969. First experience in the wild, Mendoza joined several brutal murders in the prison itself. He usually wielded a machete. Fear united and bloodthirsty Mexicans at San Quintin was already so great that the administration at all desire could not find witnesses. In recognition of Mendoza, he was killed in San Quintin less than a dozen prisoners. At the same time began an intensive set of the previously small band of new recruits. The conspiracy of the Mafia. When Morgan and Mendoza finally completed the formation of the Mexican concepts and rituals. Unlike the Russian thieves-in-law, proud of belonging to the thieves' bar and are obliged in every situation to confirm to law enforcement your title, Mex highly secret. Publicity belonging to law any person punishable by death. The Mexican's whole soul was rejecting the arrows. No man, no problem. A simple principle has saved them from having to negotiate and agree. When law created a dealer network for the drug trade in California, they put before the heroin dealers one choice: or work for the Mexicans, or die. VE always operated flawlessly. As in Russia, members of law prohibits any cooperation with the government, whether in prison or free. For heard not allowed on the ears, and immediately killed. Crackers they had. In law was closed the way for omitted, or at least once have demonstrated their cowardice. In prison the gang had placed their representatives. Blockers very is similar to the domestic looking. The code of conduct Mexican bandits did not extend to members of their families. Moreover, for the sins of the parents were not supposed to meet their relatives. Dido Moreno, a former gang member who continued to call themselves such, and even the habit of collecting tribute from drug dealers, waiting for retribution for treason for 12 years. The killers, said to him, in a fit of jealousy of the job, killed the whole family of enemy, including children. Law punished them with death for abuse of power and violation of the laws. The admission of a new member in the gang was only possible with the unanimous approval of candidate. In the compositions of tattoos, the Mexicans appealed to the ancient history, producing a borrowing from the Aztec culture. The bodies of the members of law there were images of eagles, snakes, Aztec calendars, and ancient warriors. For safe communication between the Mexicans coined the language manually. It is not clear a white policeman. The defector. In 1975, Joe Morgan and Ramon Mundo Mendoza parole procedure will be released from San Quintin. Their fate will be different. Morgan will die a convinced criminal authority, and Mendoza repent and become the first high-ranking defector from law in the camp of American justice. He will reveal the history and mysteries of the Mexican Mafia. His testimony will be included in the indictment on 36 counts of activities of law. America applies the protection program witnesses, securely tucked, and paid him. First in the drug business. The baton from Morgan and Mendoza in San Quintin will Eddie Gonzalez named Jung. From prison, in which already implicitly there was strict Mexican rules, he successfully attempts to run an elaborate system of distribution of drugs throughout California. The task was to obtain from the Mexican narcocartel an uninterrupted supply of raw materials and to remove competitors in the market. Both objectives were successfully achieved. All those who disagree with the monopoly of EME died with their boots on. With humor, Jung called the process of forming a network marketing preaching the gospel. Commercialization of gang activity has led to the fact that all her further efforts were aimed at making money. The true heyday of EME occurred in the 90s. The police were unable to deal with the well-established structure. For members of EME, prison has become a home of her. They had successfully managed the activities of large organizations. In addition to the profitable resale of drugs, the organization imposed a tribute to all the dealers operating in controlled territory. Traditional Mexican heroin was replenished with South American cocaine, and even further amphetamines that satisfy the taste preferences of all consumers' potions. The struggle for the extension of the habitat was for gangs a priority. In EME came the California, Oregon, and Hawaii divisions. In these states most lives of immigrants from Mexico. In those years, EME was trying to get respectful to talk about yourself all. For wrong submission of facts from the life of the Mexican Mafia, the gang killed all the consultants of the film Americanizing Me. Another Latin American gang, La Familia, has lost 2 fighters. Improvident publicly release flat jokes about Mexicans. The American government was forced to throw huge forces and means for the termination of the Mexican Mafia, but before final victory is still far. In EME is constantly a flow of new recruits, rising to replace those who end up in jail, where criminals thrive. They would temporarily change their place of work, and their families regularly receive wages of heads of families. To talk about the crisis in the ranks of the organization is not necessary. The gang had just gone deeper underground. Another thing in Russia. Romance groups' pickpockets are long gone. A simple, almost monastic way of life thieves-in-law of the previous generations looks like a throwback. The title itself is sold for money and is slowly becoming a good investment in achieving success in business. Devalue the archaic concepts. In the 90s of the Black Power in zones clashed with common criminals, not recognizing former authority. Now the situation is even more difficult. Prisons breed Jmot living by their own laws, and not jealousy neither thieves nor bandits. Came the obvious crisis of the thieves' ideology, and the vacuum does not happen in nature. Free space needs something to fill up. Eyes looking can fall on the experience of Mexicans.